Snow was already erasing the woman when Alpha King Everett Hale saw her fall. One moment, she was a pale figure staggering between the pines. The next, she disappeared to her knees beside the frozen border road, one bare hand sinking into the white. Everett pulled his horse to a stop. No one should have survived long enough to reach this stretch of Frosthaven on foot. Yet she had. The Alpha King found his enemy's Omega bride cast out in the cold. Then he made a shocking choice. Hello, everyone, and welcome. If you enjoy stories about courage, compassion, and destiny, subscribe and turn on notifications to help our channel grow. Now, back to Everett, and the stranger winter had nearly taken from him. Your Majesty, wait. Caleb Brooks dismounted behind him. Everett was already moving. The storm had passed hours earlier, leaving the northern forest unnaturally quiet. Snow bent the pine branches low, and fading daylight painted the road in shades of silver and blue. Everett had come to inspect damaged border posts with Caleb and 6 royal guards. Blackridge territory lay beyond the ridge. That alone made an unknown traveler dangerous. Everett crouched beside her. She was young, perhaps in her mid-20s, with ash-blonde hair tangled across a face drained of color. An ivory winter dress clung wetly around her legs. One sleeve had torn near the wrist, exposing dark bruising beneath the skin. Her feet were bare. Blood marked the snow behind them. Caleb stopped several paces away. Everett. His voice had changed. Everett followed his stare to the woman's cloak. A black wolf had been embroidered near its torn edge. The crest of Blackridge Pack. Grant Mercer's crest. Everett felt an old, familiar cold settle beneath his ribs. Mercer was more than a neighboring alpha. He was an enemy whose polished diplomacy had never disguised the hostility between their territories. Finding anyone from Blackridge this deep inside Frosthaven demanded questions. Finding her like this demanded different ones. The woman shuddered. A small silver wolf pendant slipped from beneath her collar, flashed once in the dying light, then rested against her chest. Everett reached toward her. Shoulder. Don't, Caleb warned. We don't know why she's here. We know she's freezing. Everett touched 2 fingers to the side of her neck. A pulse answered, weak, but present. Her eyelids moved. Blue-gray eyes opened and struggled to focus on him. For a heartbeat, she seemed too exhausted even to be afraid. Then she noticed the silver crown clasp fastening Everett's coat. Terror sharpened her expression. She tried to pull away. No, the word barely carried. Easy, Everett said. You're on Frosthaven land. That frightened her more. Please. Her fingers closed around the ruined fabric at her throat. I won't go back. Caleb stepped nearer. Back to Blackridge. Her lips parted, but she said nothing. Everett watched her carefully. Fear could hide lies. So could desperation. Grant Mercer had tested Frosthaven's borders before, and Everett had survived too long by mistaking vulnerability for innocence. Behind them, Nolan Pierce examined the road. Your Majesty. The captain pointed toward the tree line. One trail coming down from the ridge. Hers. No horse tracks on this side. Everett looked at the raw skin of her feet. Whatever had brought her here, she had crossed the last miles alone. Your name? He said gently. She hesitated. Elena. Her breath caught. Elena Whitmore. Caleb went silent. Everett knew the name. Months earlier, Blackridge had publicly celebrated Grant Mercer's marriage to an Omega from the Whitmore family, presenting the union as proof of Blackridge's strength and stability. Everett looked again at the torn ivory dress. Not a traveler's clothing. A bride's. Elena Whitmore Mercer, Caleb said quietly. Elena flinched at the surname as though he had struck her. That reaction settled something in Everett. Not trust, but certainty that leaving her here was impossible. Snow began drifting from the branches overhead. He removed his black cloak and wrapped it around her shoulders. Elena stared at him. Why? Everett did not answer immediately. A king could investigate betrayal. He could question loyalties. He could survive whatever political game Grant Mercer had begun. A dying woman could do none of those things. Nolan, ready a horse. Caleb, tell Maggie Foster to prepare for severe exposure. Caleb stared at him. You're bringing Mercer's wife into Frosthaven Castle? Everett lifted Elena carefully. She was frighteningly light in his arms. I'm bringing Elena Whitmore in from the cold. Her eyes closed against his chest as his cloak surrounded her. Then, so softly Everett almost missed it, she whispered. He wanted me to die out here. Everett stopped. Who? But Elena had already slipped into unconsciousness. Across the ridge stood Blackridge. And for the first time that day, Everett was no longer wondering how his enemy's bride had reached Frosthaven. He was wondering who had made certain she would never make it back. Elena woke because someone was touching her feet. Panic came before memory. She jerked upright, pain tearing through her toes, and caught the blankets against her chest. "No, please." The older woman beside the bed immediately withdrew her hands. "All right, no one will touch you without warning." Her voice was calm, almost maternal. Elena blinked at unfamiliar walls, a glowing fireplace, heavy cream curtains, and morning lights spilling across a polished floor. Then memory returned. The forest, the snow, strong arms lifting her, a black cloak carrying the scent of pine and winter air. "Everett Hale." Elena's breath shortened. "Where am I?" "Frosthaven Castle. I'm Maggie Foster, the royal healer." Maggie indicated a bowl of warm water beside the bed. "Your feet were badly exposed, but I believe they'll heal." "You were fortunate." "Fortunate." Elena almost laughed. Instead, her hand flew to her throat. Her fingers found the small silver wolf pendant beneath the borrowed nightgown. Only then did she breathe again. Maggie noticed, but asked nothing. "How long?" "Since yesterday afternoon." Elena looked toward the door. "Does he know I'm awake?" She did not need to say which man. The king asked to be informed. Elena closed her eyes. Grant had spent months teaching her what kind of man Everett Hale was: vengeful, merciless, incapable of forgetting an injury. Now she was inside his castle wearing clothes provided by his household. A knock came before she could decide whether to be grateful or terrified. Everett entered with Caleb Brooks behind him. Neither approached the bed until Maggie nodded. Elena noticed that. She hated that she noticed. "How are you feeling?" Everett asked. "Alive." Something faint shifted in his gray eyes. "That's an improvement." Caleb remained near the doorway, his attention sharper. Everett pulled a chair forward, but left several feet between them. "Yesterday you told me someone wanted you to die." Elena's fingers tightened beneath the blanket. So he had heard. "I wasn't thinking clearly." Were the words untrue? She looked at him. "No." The room seemed to contract around that answer. "Did Grant Mercer send you into the storm?" Everett asked. Hearing Grant's name made her stomach turn. "He ordered me out of Blackridge." Caleb frowned. "His own wife." Elena's face hardened. "Don't call me that." Caleb went quiet. Everett studied her reaction rather than correcting her. "Did you leave voluntarily?" "No." "Were you escorted to the border?" A memory flashed. Horses behind her, men who never offered a saddle, Blackridge gates disappearing through falling snow. Elena stared at the fire. "I walked." "That wasn't my question." Everett's voice stayed measured. Elena met his gaze. "Then I'm not ready to answer it." Caleb exhaled. "Miss Whitmore, you crossed into a hostile kingdom wearing Blackridge colors. You must understand how this looks." "I understand exactly how it looks." She swallowed. "That's why I expected you to leave me there." Everett's expression changed. "Is that what Grant told you I would do?" Elena regretted her silence immediately. It answered him. Everett leaned back. "Why did he cast you out?" There it was, the question she had feared since opening her eyes. She remembered papers beneath Grant's hand, his voice telling her where to sign, the look on his face when she refused. Elena touched the pendant under her collar. "I can't tell you." "Can't?" Caleb asked. "Or won't?" Her eyes moved between the two powerful men. "If I give you something useful against Grant, then I become useful to you." The words came more steadily now. "I know what happens when powerful men decide my value depends on what I can give them." Silence followed. Everett could have demanded an answer. Elena waited for the order. It never came. "No more questions today," he said. Caleb turned. "Everett, she nearly froze to death yesterday." He rose, then looked at Elena. "You are not being returned to anyone while you are under Maggie's care." It was not freedom, but it was not possession either. Elena did not know what to do with the difference. Hours later, while Maggie changed the dressings on her feet, urgent footsteps sounded outside. A guard spoke in the corridor, too low for Elena to catch everything. She heard 3 words clearly. "Blackridge. Royal Seal. Mercer." Maggie's hands paused. Elena felt the warmth leave her body. The door opened, and Caleb appeared holding a folded parchment. His expression had lost every trace of skepticism. "Grant Mercer knows you survived." Elena stared at the black seal in his hand. Caleb's next words confirmed the fear she had carried all morning. And he wants you back. By midday, Grant Mercer's demand had reached the council chamber, and the 6 lines inside it carried more danger than a declaration of war. Everett stood at the head of the long oak table while Caleb read the message aloud. Return my wife immediately. Elena Whitmore Mercer departed Blackridge without authorization and remains bound to my household. Any attempt to conceal or detain her will be considered hostile interference. Caleb lowered the parchment. He sent this less than a day after we found her. Everett's gaze remained on the black seal. Something was missing. Does he ask whether she survived? Caleb looked down again. No, several council members shifted uneasily. One spoke first. Whatever happened between them, she is Mercer's lawful bride. Keeping her here gives Blackridge grounds to accuse us of interference. We found her half dead on Frosthaven soil, Nolan Pierce said. That does not make her ours, another elder replied. Everett's eyes lifted. She is not anyone's property. The chamber quieted. Caleb waited until the others had gone before approaching him. I agree with what you said, but the law may still favor Mercer's claim unless Elena gives us a reason to challenge it. She isn't ready. Grant may be counting on that. Everett looked toward the window, where fresh snow covered the castle roofs. He knew Caleb was not asking him to be cruel. That made the warning harder to dismiss. Find out how she reached the border, Everett said. No assumptions. No conclusions. Evidence. Nolan left within the hour. Elena knew none of this when Maggie finally allowed her to walk beyond the healing chamber. Every step hurt, but remaining in bed made her feel trapped inside someone else's decision. She carried a small stack of folded linens toward the upper infirmary when a kitchen maid hurried around the corner and slipped on the stone floor. The basin in the girl's hands crashed down. Water spread across the corridor. I'm sorry. The maid gasped, staring at Elena's wet skirt. Please, my lady, I didn't mean. Elena caught her wrist before she could kneel. The girl recoiled as though expecting punishment. Elena released her immediately. Are you hurt? No. Then nothing important happened. She crouched carefully and began gathering the fallen cloths. You don't have to do that, Everett said behind her. Elena looked over her shoulder. Neither does she. The maid glanced nervously at the king. Everett bent, picked up the basin, and handed it back without comment. The girl fled with whispered thanks. Elena watched her disappear. She was afraid of me. She was afraid of disappointing someone above her. Elena's expression grew distant. Sometimes those are the same thing. Everett understood there was more beneath the sentence, but he did not ask. That restraint unsettled her almost as much as interrogation would have. Later, Nolan returned from the northern boundary with snow still clinging to his boots. Everett and Caleb met him in the study. Her trail begins near the Blackridge marker, Nolan said. But she wasn't alone before that. He spread a rough map across the desk. Several horses approached from the Blackridge side. They stopped short of our territory. Only Elena continued. Caleb frowned. Could they have been searching for her? Not if they watched her leave. Nolan tapped a point near the ridge. The snow preserved. Enough of the pattern. The horses remained there before turning back together. Everett felt the implications settle heavily. They brought her to the border. That's what it looks like. Everett ordered Nolan to speak with Elena before making the finding official. She received him that evening beside her chamber window. When he explained what he had found, the color faded from her face. Were those riders escorting you? He asked. Elena's thumb rubbed unconsciously over the edge of her silver pendant. They were following orders. Whose? She closed her eyes. Grant's. Nolan waited. What were they ordered to do? Elena remembered the gates shutting behind her and one rider warning the others not to help, no matter how many times she fell. Make sure I kept walking. Nolan's expression tightened. Why would Mercer do that to his own bride? Elena looked toward the white hills beyond the glass. She had spent days believing silence might keep the truth contained inside Blackridge. Grant's letter had destroyed that illusion. Because I refused something he needed from me. What? Elena's fingers closed around the pendant. This time, she did not say she couldn't tell him. If Grant is demanding me back, she whispered, then whatever he wanted me to hide is more dangerous than I thought. The next morning, Elena was summoned to Frosthaven's receiving hall, not as a prisoner, Everett made certain of that, but because a Blackridge envoy had arrived carrying a formal petition. She entered beside Maggie and immediately recognized the messenger, Thomas Vance, one of Grant's household officials. His expression softened when he saw her, but Elena knew that particular softness. She had seen it on men delivering orders they expected her to obey. "Lady Mercer," Vance said. "Alpha Mercer is relieved you are safe." Elena stopped. Grant had never called her safe when safety mattered. Vance turned toward Everett. "My Alpha requests the immediate return of his wife. He believes her departure resulted from emotional distress and wishes to resolve this privately." Caleb opened the petition. "He now claims she left voluntarily. That is his understanding." Elena felt the old instinct rise inside her. Stay quiet, survive the room, let powerful men finish speaking. Then Vance looked at her. "Your husband is prepared to overlook what happened, Elena. Come home, and this unfortunate episode can be forgotten." Forgotten? She remembered Grant's study. A document waiting beside an inkpot. His fingers tapping the signature line. She had spent days protecting the truth by refusing to speak it. Now she understood that her silence was protecting Grant instead. "Ask him why he sent riders with me," she said. Vance's smile disappeared. "I'm not authorized to discuss household matters. They followed me to the border." Elena's voice shook, but she continued. "They watched until I crossed it. Perhaps they were trying to bring you back." "Nolan found their tracks," Everett said. They turned around together. Vance glanced toward him. "Tracks can be misunderstood." Elena looked at Everett. He did not rescue her from the moment. He simply waited, leaving the next choice hers. She drew a breath. 3 nights before Grant expelled me, I found military reports in his study." Caleb's attention sharpened. "What reports?" "A Frosthaven supply convoy. Its route. Guard numbers. Arrival schedule." The room changed. Everett had lost a winter convoy 2 weeks earlier to an ambush near neutral territory. Blackridge had blamed rogue wolves. Why would Mercer have those details? Caleb asked. "I asked him the same thing." Elena pressed her thumb against the edge of her silver pendant beneath her collar. "He told me they had come from a source inside Frosthaven." Vance stepped forward. "Your Majesty, she is confused." Elena flinched at the familiar word. Grant had used it whenever she remembered something inconvenient. This time, she did not retreat. "Then let me finish being confused." Everett's gaze flickered toward her, but he remained silent. "Grant wanted a statement from me," she continued. "He wanted me to say I had overheard Westmere traders discussing the attack before it happened. My family has connections there. He believed my name would make the accusation credible." Caleb's face hardened. "Did you sign it?" "No, why?" Elena looked directly at Everett. "Because it wasn't true." Vance's composure fractured. "You have no right to reveal private correspondence." That was the mistake. Everyone heard it. Caleb turned slowly toward him. "Private correspondence you just implied did not exist." Vance went pale. Elena felt something inside her shift. For months, Grant's household had taught her that speaking made her dangerous only to herself. For the first time, speaking had made someone else afraid. "He asked me again the following night," she said. "I refused. Then I told him that if he used my name against Westmere, I would testify before the neutral council." Everett's jaw tightened. "And afterward, Grant ordered me out before dawn. Without a horse." "Yes." "Without winter supplies?" Elena nodded. Vance recovered enough to raise his chin. "These are accusations from a distressed Omega with no evidence." The words landed differently now. Elena looked at him without lowering her eyes. "Then Grant should have nothing to fear from an investigation." Silence filled the hall. Everett reached for the petition, read its final lines, and placed it on the table. "Tell Mercer Elena Whitmore will remain under medical protection while Frosthaven investigates the convoy attack. My Alpha gave you 48 hours to return his wife." Everett's eyes cooled. "Your Alpha does not set deadlines inside my kingdom." Vance left beneath Nolan's escort. Only when the doors closed did Elena's knees weaken. Maggie moved toward her, but Everett stopped several feet away, giving Elena the choice to accept help. She steadied herself against the table. "You believe me. I believe your account deserves evidence." Oddly, that answer comforted her more than blind faith would have. Everett turned to Nolan. "Trace the convoy route. Every order, every change, every weapon recovered after the attack." Nolan nodded. Caleb was still staring at the doorway. If Mercer arranged the ambush and meant to blame Westmere, he wasn't hiding one crime. Everett looked at the Black Wolf seal on Grant's petition. Elena understood the rest before he said it. He was trying to create a war. By late afternoon, Everett had enough evidence to doubt Grant Mercer, but not enough to destroy him. Nolan placed 3 arrowheads from the attacked convoy on the king's desk. Their blackened steel had been scraped where a maker's mark should have been. The quartermaster believes they came from a military forge, Nolan said, not weapons carried by wandering rogues. Caleb examined one beneath the lamp. Can he identify which forge? Not yet. Everett looked toward the altered convoy report beside them. Elena had given him a direction. Now physical evidence was beginning to follow it. Still, suspicion would not stop Grant from demanding her return. Caleb seemed to read the thought. The 48-hour deadline expires tomorrow. I remember. Then we need to decide what Elena is while she remains here. Everett's eyes hardened. She is Elena Whitmore. You know what I mean. Caleb placed a prepared order on the desk. Medical protection ends when Maggie declares her fit. After that, she is either a guest with no formal standing or under royal protection. Everett read the document. And if I sign, Frosthaven assumes responsibility for her safety. Mercer can no longer claim we are merely treating a stranded traveler. Caleb paused. He will call it interference. Some of our allies may agree. And if I don't, when Maggie releases her, Grant's legal claim becomes much harder to resist. Everett picked up the pen. Caleb did not stop him. Once I seal this, he said quietly, you cannot tell Mercer she was merely a guest. Everett signed his name. Seal it. The royal stamp came down with a dull crack. There was nothing dramatic about the sound, yet both men understood what had changed. Frosthaven had chosen a side. Everett found Elena later in the castle library, standing beside a tall window with her hands resting on the sill. Beyond the glass, snow covered the mountains between Frosthaven and Blackridge, turning the distance she had crossed into an endless field of white. When Everett told her about the order, she turned slowly. You shouldn't have done that. Probably not. The answer surprised her. Grant will use it against you. He already uses anything he can. That doesn't make me worth risking your alliances. Everett's expression tightened. You don't determine your worth by how inconvenient your survival becomes. Elena looked toward the mountains. Men like Grant do. I'm not Grant. I know. Her voice softened. That's why this frightens me. Everett waited. Elena touched the silver wolf pendant beneath her collar. My mother gave me this when I was 16. She said people might change my name, take my home, even decide what they thought I should become. She told me to keep one thing that reminded me who I was before they started choosing for me. She lifted the pendant into the pale light. I kept it through my marriage. Through Blackridge. Through that night. Everett finally understood why her hand found it whenever she felt cornered. I don't want another man to rescue me by owning me, she said. The sentence carried no accusation. That made it harder to answer. Then I won't. Elena searched his face. Even if keeping me free makes your position weaker? Yes. Even if I decide to leave Frosthaven? Everett felt an unexpected resistance inside himself. He ignored it. You can leave whenever you choose. And if I go to Westmere, I'll provide safe passage. Her eyes glistened. Why? Because protection that requires you to stay isn't protection. For several seconds, neither moved. Nothing had been promised between them except freedom. Yet Elena felt something shift more deeply than any claim Grant had ever forced upon her. A knock interrupted them. Caleb entered holding a dispatch from Nolan. We found a surviving convoy guard. Everett took the page. What did he remember? Their commander received new route instructions hours before the ambush. They carried an authentic Frosthaven military seal. Elena's face changed. Someone inside your kingdom redirected them. Caleb nodded. Straight toward the attackers. Everett read the copied authorization at the bottom of the report. The room seemed to lose its warmth. He knew the handwriting. Years earlier, he had seen the same careful signature on another route order, the last one issued before his father and older brother rode into an ambush and never returned. Elena saw grief enter his face. Before anger covered it. For the first time, the threat connecting Grant to Frosthaven was no longer only hers. Everett folded the dispatch once. Find the man who signed this. Caleb did not move. Everett. What? Caleb's answer came quietly. We thought he died 12 years ago. Everett knew the name before Caleb spoke it. Silas Ward. 12 years earlier, Ward had served as Frosthaven's deputy quartermaster, trusted with military routes, supply schedules, and the movements of the royal household. 3 days after the ambush that killed Everett's father and older brother, Ward vanished. No body was found. Eventually, Frosthaven had listed him among the dead. Everett stared at the copied signature until the ink blurred into an older memory. His brother laughing before mounting his horse, his father promising to return before supper, 2 empty saddles coming home instead. "We searched for him for months," Caleb said. "If he survived, someone helped him disappear." Nolan entered carrying a narrow archive box. "And someone kept paying him," he said, an old ledger beside the recent convoy order. The earliest entries began 6 months after the Hale ambush, coded transfers routed through a trading house operating inside Blackridge territory. Later payments followed the same pattern. Everett turned one page, then another. "How long?" 11 years, Nolan replied. The answer settled heavily across the room. Elena stood near the fireplace, watching Everett rather than the documents. She had seen Grant angry many times. His anger always moved outward, searching for someone weaker to punish. Everett's did something different. It became still. "Grant knew him," she said. Everett looked up. "How do you know?" "I'm not certain." She forced herself to continue. "Sometimes military papers arrived at Blackridge after dark. Grant would lock them away before a visitor came. He called the man the keeper. I never saw his face." "Did you ever hear another name?" Elena searched the memory carefully. A closed study door. Grant speaking too loudly after drinking. A man answering from inside. "Ward," she whispered. "Once," Grant said. "Ward has never failed my family." Everett's hand tightened around the ledger. Caleb exchanged a look with Nolan. The old betrayal and the recent convoy attack were no longer separate wounds. They followed the same hand. "My father and brother," Everett said. "Grant's family paid the man who sent them into that ambush." Elena saw what came next before he said it. 12 years of grief suddenly given a living target. "What are you going to do?" Everett's gray eyes were colder than she had ever seen them. "Find Ward. And then make him answer." "For the convoy?" "For everything." Elena's fingers found her silver pendant. "And Grant?" Everett did not respond. That silence frightened her more than rage would have. "This is what he expects," she said. "You don't know what he expects. I know what powerful men do when pain gives them permission." Everett turned sharply. Elena almost stepped back. "Almost. If you use what I know to destroy Grant because of what happened to your family, then I become another weapon. He deserves justice." "Yes." Her voice remained quiet. "But justice and revenge can look very similar when you're the one holding the blade." Everett stared at her. She had every reason to want Grant ruined, yet she was asking Everett not to become cruel on her behalf. That truth reached somewhere anger could not. "I could question you about his household," he admitted. "His habits. His weaknesses. Every door you saw opened." Elena's face tightened. "I know." Everett folded the ledger and pushed it away. "I won't." She blinked. "What?" "You trusted me with the truth when telling it could have put you back in his hands. I will not repay that by turning you into ammunition." The tension in Elena's shoulders eased, but only slightly. "Even after this?" She glanced at Ward's name. Everett looked at the signature that had haunted half his life. "Especially after this." A bell sounded from the outer courtyard. Then another, long, resonant, unmistakable. Nolan crossed to the window. Torchlight moved beyond the gates beneath black banners. Caleb joined him and swore under his breath. "Blackridge." Elena went pale. She did not need to see the rider leading the procession. She knew the disciplined formation, the dark horses, the crest she had once been forced to wear. "Grant." Everett came to the window beside her. Below, Grant Mercer dismounted before Frosthaven's steps, as though arriving somewhere he expected to be obeyed. "He didn't wait for the deadline," Caleb said. Elena's hand closed around her pendant. Everett looked at her, then deliberately stepped away from the window. "You do not have to face him." Elena watched Grant disappear beneath the castle entrance. For months, every choice around him had been made for her. This one would not be. She released the pendant. "Yes," she said. "I do." Grant Mercer entered Frosthaven's council chamber without a sword, but Elena knew better than anyone that he had never needed one to make a room afraid. The neutral pack leaders stood along the long table, summoned to witness his claim. Everett waited at its head, Caleb at his right, and Nolan near the doors. Elena entered beside Maggie. Grant's gaze found her instantly. "There you are." 2 ordinary words, spoken with the same quiet ownership that had once made Elena lower her eyes. This time, she kept them raised. "My name is Elena." Grant's smile thinned. And by law, my name follows yours. Caleb opened the formal petition. Alpha Mercer claims Elena abandoned Blackridge voluntarily and demands her immediate return. Correct. Grant addressed the council rather than Elena. My wife became distressed. King Hale has exploited her confusion to interfere in my household. Everett placed the altered convoy order on the table. Beside it went the recovered arrowheads and payment ledger. Then perhaps you can explain why military information stolen from Frosthaven passed through Blackridge accounts. Grant barely glanced down. I cannot explain every merchant transaction in my territory. Can you explain Silas Ward? Everett asked. For one fraction of a second, Grant froze. Elena saw it. Caleb did too. The name means nothing to me. Elena stepped forward. Her heart pounded, but her voice held. You called him the keeper. Grant turned toward her. Be careful. The warning was soft, intimate, familiar. Once, it would have silenced her. You said Ward had never failed your family. You were always prone to misunderstanding conversations beyond your concern. Like the convoy route. His composure cracked. Enough, Elena. Or the statement you ordered me to sign. The chamber went still. Grant took a step toward her. You ungrateful little. Everett moved between them. He did not touch Grant. He simply made further movement impossible. Caleb opened the ledger. Payments to Ward began 6 months after the ambush that killed King Everett's father and brother. They continued for 11 years. Grant's eyes shifted toward the council. Whatever my father did 12 years ago has no bearing on my marriage. Everett's expression changed. Your father? Grant realized too late what he had admitted. Nolan spoke into the silence. Interesting. A moment ago, Ward's name meant nothing to you. Grant's mask finally slipped. My father paid informants. Every alpha does. Did Ward give him the Hale route? Everett asked. Grant looked at him, an arrogance one where caution might have saved him. Your father trusted the wrong man. That was his failure. Elena felt Everett go utterly still. 12 years of grief stood within reach of the man whose family had financed it. Grant seemed to expect violence. Perhaps he wanted it. If Everett struck him before neutral witnesses, everything could become a dispute between two vengeful kings instead of an investigation into Blackridge. Everett slowly unclenched his hand. Grant's disappointment was almost visible. We are here for Elena, one neutral elder said. The evidence against Blackridge must be investigated separately. Until this marriage is formally dissolved, Mercer retains a legal claim. Another leader lowered his voice. If Frosthaven refuses him without a ruling, neighboring pacts may withdraw support. War could follow. Grant extended his hand toward Elena. Come home. Do this willingly, and I will consider Frosthaven's interference settled. Elena stared at his palm. Then she looked at Everett. He had signed an order that endangered his alliances for her. He had refused to use her against the man connected to his family's deaths. Now hundreds might pay because she stayed. If I go willingly, she asked Grant, you withdraw your claim against Frosthaven? Immediately. Elena took one step forward. No, Everett said. She turned. You promised the choice would be mine. It is. Pain moved across his face, but his voice remained steady. So answer one question. Do you want to go with him? Elena looked at Grant, at the hand waiting to close around her life again. No, Everett faced the council. Then she stays. Grant lowered his arm. You would start a war over another Alpha's bride? No, Everett stepped away from Elena, leaving clear space around her. I would risk your anger rather than return a woman to the man who drove her into a winter storm because she refused to support his lie. Grant laughed bitterly. Then claim her, Hale. At least have the courage to admit what this is. Everett's answer came without hesitation. Elena Whitmore belongs neither to you nor to me. The words struck the chamber harder than a challenge. Elena's breath caught. Everett looked directly at the neutral leaders. Frosthaven will protect her right to testify, and when this is over, she may leave my kingdom if she chooses. But no law worthy of obedience gives a man the right to discard a woman when she becomes inconvenient and reclaim her when she becomes dangerous. Grant's face darkened. You have made your choice. Everett met his stare. Yes. Outside, Blackridge soldiers waited beneath their banners. Inside, several neutral leaders began whispering urgently. The cost of Everett's decision had not yet been measured, but for the first time in Elena's life, a powerful man had been given the chance to possess her and had chosen instead to defend her freedom. For several seconds after Everett's declaration, no one in the council chamber moved. Elena stood behind him, staring at the man who had just risked alliances, reputation, and peace without asking for anything in return. Grant recovered first. "A noble speech," he said. "But speeches do not dissolve marriages." "No," Caleb replied. "Evidence does." Nolan opened the chamber doors. A surviving Frosthaven convoy guard entered carrying the damaged route order he had preserved after the attack. He placed it beside the records already on the table. "I received this from our commander hours before the convoy changed course," he said. "We followed it because the seal was genuine." Caleb turned the document toward the neutral leaders. "Until now, we knew Ward's handwriting appeared on the altered authorization. This witness confirms that the order was actually delivered before the ambush and directly caused the convoy to enter the attacker's path." The guard nodded. "Without that order, we would never have been on that road." Nolan placed the Blackridge payment ledger beside it. And Silas Ward, Frosthaven's former deputy quartermaster, was paid through Blackridge accounts for 11 years. Grant's jaw tightened. Ward acted independently. Elena looked at him. "You said his name meant nothing to you." A murmur passed through the council. Grant turned on her, anger finally stripping away his polished restraint. "You think Hale has freed you? You have simply traded one alpha for another." Elena's fingers brushed the silver wolf pendant at her throat. Once, those words would have reached the part of her that believed every kindness concealed a price. She looked at Everett. He did not answer for her. He did not pull her behind him. He waited. Elena stepped forward on her own. "No, Grant. That is the difference." Her voice trembled once, then steadied. "Everett opened a door and told me I could leave. You opened one in a snowstorm because you thought I wouldn't survive it." Grant's face hardened. "Careful. I spent months being careful." She met his eyes. "It never made you kinder." One of the neutral leaders rose. "The evidence now establishes sufficient cause for a formal investigation into Blackridge, Silas Ward, the convoy attack, and the coercion of Elena Whitmore. Until that inquiry is completed, this council will not compel her to return." A second leader agreed. Then a third. Grant's certainty began to fracture. "You are taking an Omega's word over an Alpha's?" "We are taking corroborated evidence over rank," the elder replied. Grant moved toward Elena. His hand shot out for her arm. Everett caught his wrist before he reached her. Startled voices broke across the chamber, but Everett did not strike him. He simply held Grant's gaze. "Do not touch her." Grant pulled free. For an instant, hatred exposed everything diplomacy had concealed. Nolan's guard stepped between the two alphas. With the petition suspended and the investigation formally opened, Grant could no longer remove Elena without defying the neutral council itself. He stopped at the doorway and looked back at her. "When this collapses, you will have nowhere to go." The old fear stirred inside Elena and passed. "Then I'll choose somewhere." Grant left Frosthaven under escort. His black banners disappeared beyond the gates before sunset. Only afterward did Elena find Everett alone on the western balcony. Snow covered the valley below, while the first stars appeared above the mountains. "You could have claimed me," she said. Everett glanced toward her. "Grant wanted me to. So did some of the council. I know. It might have made everything easier." Everett rested his hands against the stone railing. "For whom?" Elena had no answer. He turned toward her. "When the investigation is finished, I'll arrange safe passage to Westmere. Your Aunt Vivian can meet you there, if that is what you want." Elena searched his face. "You're still willing to let me leave? I never wanted your freedom to depend on whether you chose me." She removed the silver pendant from beneath her collar and held it in her palm. "My mother gave me this so I would remember who I was." Everett looked at it, but did not reach for it. "Then keep it." Elena closed her fingers around the little wolf. "What if I don't know where I belong yet?" Everett's expression softened. "Then don't belong anywhere until you decide." Elena looked across the kingdom that had sheltered an enemy's bride and demanded neither obedience nor affection in return. For the first time, freedom did not feel like abandonment. And standing beside Everett beneath the winter stars, she realized the final choice of her old life would not be whether she could escape Grant Mercer. It would be where, and with whom, she freely chose to begin again. 3 weeks later, Elena stood before the neutral council wearing her own name again. Her aunt, Vivian Whitmore, had traveled from Westmere carrying letters she had preserved since Elena was 19. letters documenting years of pressure surrounding the marriage arrangement and Vivian's repeated objections to it. Nolan's investigation supplied what those letters could not. Silas Ward had been captured attempting to cross the Southern Pass, and records recovered with him confirmed the chain Frosthaven had spent weeks uncovering. Grant's father had paid Ward for the route that sent Everett's father and older brother into their fatal ambush 12 years earlier. After inheriting Blackridge, Grant had kept Ward hidden and used the same network to redirect Frosthaven's recent convoy, intending to blame Westmere and fracture the alliances protecting the disputed territories. The false statement Grant had ordered Elena to sign was meant to make that lie credible. When she refused, Grant ordered his riders to take her to the border without a horse or supplies and ensure she kept walking. He expected Winter to silence the witness he could no longer control. Instead, it carried her into the path of the one king Grant believed would treat her as another piece on the board. The council suspended Grant's authority pending final judgment, placed Blackridge under neutral supervision, and formally released Elena from every marital claim he had asserted over her. Ward would stand trial for treason and murder. When the ruling was read, Elena did not cheer. She simply closed her eyes and released a breath she felt she had been holding for years. Vivian reached for her hand. Elena took it. Outside the chamber, Everett waited alone. He had deliberately stayed away from the final deliberation. "It's over," Elena said. "It is. You could have been inside. I could have." She understood before he explained. "You didn't want my freedom attached to your influence." Everett met her eyes. "It needed to belong to you." 2 mornings later, a carriage waited in Frosthaven's courtyard to take Elena and Vivian to Westmere. Maggie embraced her and tucked an unnecessary blanket onto the seat. Nolan wished her peace. Caleb handed her copies of the council ruling. "Keep these somewhere safer than King's." Elena smiled. "I will." Everett waited beside the carriage door. He had arranged guards for the journey and nothing beyond it. No request. No promise designed to make leaving harder. "Westmere is expecting you," he said. "After that, every road is yours." Elena searched his face. "Is that all you're going to say?" Something warm and aching touched his eyes. Anything else might sound like a reason to stay. Her throat tightened. Everett offered his hand only to help her into the carriage, then released hers immediately. The gates opened. Frosthaven receded behind them. Half a mile down the road, Elena touched the silver wolf pendant resting against her heart. Her mother had given it to her, so she would remember herself when other people tried to decide who she should become. For years, Elena had imagined freedom as escape, the distance between herself and whoever controlled the door behind her. Now every road was open, and no one was following. She looked back toward Frosthaven. Everett had protected her when she was helpless, demanded evidence instead of blind trust, defended her when doing so became costly, and then let her leave when keeping her would have been easier. Freedom, she realized, was not proving she could walk away. It was knowing she could return without surrendering herself. "Stop the carriage." Vivian followed her gaze toward the distant towers. "Are you certain?" Elena smiled through sudden tears. "For the first time, no one else needs to be." Everett was still crossing the courtyard when Elena returned through the gates on foot, breathless from the climb. He stopped. "Elena." "Nothing happened," she said. "That's why I came back." Confusion softened into fragile hope. "You don't owe me anything." "I know." She lifted the silver pendant, then let it settle against her heart. She would not give away the symbol of herself to prove she loved someone. "You gave me a choice when everyone else wanted to choose for me." She stepped closer. "So now I'm making it." Everett's voice dropped. "What do you choose? To stay? Not because I need sanctuary. Not because you're a king." Her eyes held his. "Because when you had every chance to possess me, you gave me room to become myself again." Everett raised a hand toward her cheek, then stopped. Even now he waited. Elena closed the final distance herself. Their first kiss was gentle, unhurried, and entirely chosen. Months later, beneath Frosthaven's first warm spring moon, Everett did not announce that he had claimed his enemy's Omega bride. Before his people, he asked Elena Whitmore whether she wished to stand beside him as his partner. She said yes. Grant had cast her into the cold, believing a discarded woman had nothing left to choose. He had been wrong. The Alpha King's shocking choice was never simply to save his enemy's bride. It was to protect her without claiming her, love her without owning her, and open the door even when she might walk away. And when every door finally stood open, Elena chose to walk back through his.